Hey, welcome to the Explainer. Today, we're going to break down the three main ways that governments actually set up their power structures.
It all really boils down to one big question. Who's in charge? And, maybe even more important, how do they get their power and how do they keep it? The answer to that question, well, it shapes literally everything about a country, from the laws you follow every day to its overall stability.
All right, here's what we've got on tap. We're going to start with the three main structures. Then we'll dive deep into each one: parliamentary, presidential, and semi-presidential. After that, we'll compare them side by side and wrap up with why any of this stuff actually matters.
Okay, let's jump right in. If you want to understand how a country is run, you've got to get a handle on the basic wiring. The political plumbing of the whole system. So first up, we've got the parliamentary system. This is the one you'll see in places like the United Kingdom, and it's really built around one core idea about where power should be.
The key phrase here, and you're going to hear it a lot, is fusion of powers. What does that mean? Well, in a parliamentary system, the executive branch, that's the folks running the government day to day, comes directly from the legislative branch, the lawmakers. They're not separate, they're totally intertwined.
So, think about how this works. The legislature, the parliament, actually picks the head of government, the prime minister. And the cabinet? They're also members of the legislature. Now, this means if one party has a big majority, man, they can get things done fast. There's no separate branch to put the brakes on. But there's a catch. If that same legislature loses faith in their leader, they can just call a vote of no confidence and boom, they're out. This can sometimes lead to a revolving door of leaders and a bit of instability.
Let's look at the United Kingdom for a real-world example. People there don't actually cast a vote for the Prime Minister directly. Nope, they vote for their local representative, their member of parliament. Whichever political party wins the most seats in the House of Commons, well, their leader gets a tap on the shoulder from the monarch and is asked to become Prime Minister and form a government. See, the power flows directly from the legislature.
Okay, so now let's switch gears completely and look at a totally different setup, the presidential system. This thing is basically built on the exact opposite idea of a parliamentary system.
Right? So if parliamentary systems are all about fusion, presidential systems are all about separation. The whole idea here is that the executive and the legislature are elected in totally separate elections by the people, and they each have their own specific powers and, crucially, their own fixed terms in office.
So what's the big deal here? It's that intentional separation of powers. The president gets elected directly by the people for a set amount of time and can't just be voted out by the legislature on a whim. This is designed to create stability and a clear line of accountability straight to the voters. The downside? Oh, it's a big one: gridlock. If the president is from one party and the legislature is controlled by another, getting anything done, passing laws, approving a budget, you name it, can become a huge, slow, painful process.
You can see this model in action in countries like Mexico and Nigeria. In both places, the citizens go to the polls and vote directly for their president, who serves a fixed term. That president runs the government, sure, but the legislature keeps a close eye on them. They have real power to investigate and, in extreme cases, even impeach. It's a very clear division of labor and power.
Okay, so we've got fusion on one side, separation on the other. But what if you try to kind of smash them together to get the best of both worlds? Well, that's where our third model comes in: the semi-presidential system.
This system is a real hybrid. You've got a president, who the people elect directly, but then you also have a prime minister, who the president picks, but the legislature has to approve them. This setup creates what political scientists call a dual executive, two leaders at the top.
Now, this is where things get really interesting, because the balance of power can shift around. You've got the president, who often handles the big picture stuff like foreign policy, and then the prime minister, who takes care of the day-to-day running of the government. So if the president's party also controls the legislature, that president is going to be incredibly powerful. But what if an opposition party controls the legislature? Then the president might have to pick a prime minister from the other side. This can lead to this really tense power-sharing deal that either forces everyone to compromise or just brings the whole government to a grinding halt.
Russia is a perfect example of this. They have a really powerful president who is elected directly. That president then appoints the prime minister. Now, the legislature, the Duma, has to sign off on that choice, but at the end of the day, the president holds most of the cards. It's a dual executive system for sure, but the power is definitely not split 50-50. It's heavily tilted towards the president.
All right, we've gone through all three systems. Now let's do the fun part and put them side by side. This should make the key differences pop.
I love this quote. The structure of government is the framework within which the game of politics is played. It's just so true. Because these systems aren't just some boring textbook categories, right? They're the actual rule books. They set up completely different strategies and create totally different results for how a country is run.
Okay, if there's one thing to really focus on, it's this table. It lays it all out. Look at how the executive gets picked. Parliamentary? The legislature does it. Presidential? The people do it. And semi-presidential? It's a mix. And look at the relationship between the branches. It goes from fused to separated to that weird dual system. And check out how you get rid of a leader, a simple vote of no confidence versus a super difficult impeachment process. This table just perfectly shows the different trade-offs that each system is making.
But let's get to the big so what question. Why does any of this matter in the real world? Well, it usually comes down to this classic tug-of-war between two big ideas, stability and accountability. And there's no better way to see this tension in action than to talk about term limits. Deciding just how long a leader can stay in power, that is one of the most fundamental choices a country makes, and it's directly connected to which of these systems they use.
And man, is there a debate about this. On the one side, term limits are great, right? They keep power in check, they stop dictators from taking hold, and they bring in fresh faces with new ideas. But on the other side, you might be forcing a really good, popular leader out of office just because their time is up, and it creates what's called a lame duck period. That's that awkward time when a new leader has been elected, but the old one is still hanging around. Their power just evaporates because everyone knows they're on their way out, which makes it almost impossible to get anything important done.
And that brings us right back to the central puzzle. And I'll tell you right now, there is no easy answer. Which system is more stable? Is it the parliamentary one, where you can get rid of an unpopular leader pretty quick? Or is it the presidential one, with a fixed term that guarantees you won't have a new leader every 6 months? And what about accountability? Is it better to directly elect your president, or to have a prime minister who has to answer to parliament every single day? This tension, this constant balancing act, is exactly why digging into these structures is so important for understanding how the world actually works.